having a Christian faith is again being normalized and is arguably even culturally attractive. Wow. I mean, this is coming out of the UK, so that's kind of a shocking statement, right? Do you feel like there's any of that happening in the Portland area where there's maybe less animosity toward the church right now than in previous years or decades?
Welcome to Jesus in the Upper Left, where we're talking about gospel multiplication in the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, welcome everybody. This is the Jesus in the Upper Left podcast. I am Gabe Kolstad from Westside Community Church in Beaverton, Oregon, and joined by my friend Tim. Hey, Tim, how's it going?
Hey, it's going well.
Yeah.
Really glad to be here. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about who you are and who you represent.
Yeah. My name's Tim Osborn, and I pastored for a long time here in Inner Portland on the east side, a church called Mosaic. It was a church planting church, and that's how I got connected, obviously, here with Multiply PDX. And for the last year and a half or so, I've been working with Western Seminary and launching cohorts for master's degrees.
Yeah. Super cool. And I'm really glad to be on the Multiply PDX team with you. We've been looking this week at the Quiet Revival Report, which came out of the UK. And so we're gonna dive in today to just some conversation around spiritual shifts that we may or may not be seeing in Portland and how they relate to what's going on in the UK, because this report came out of the UK and we've always known that there's a lot of cultural similarity between the UK and the Northwest. And so for those of you listening from someplace else going, I'm interested in Portland, that connection, we're going to tease it out a little bit today in some findings from this report. So you ready to dive in, Tim?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Okay, I'm just going to read off this report, the key findings quote, and then we're going to react to it. So here's the key findings. The first one from the Quiet Revival Report. It goes like this: having a Christian faith is again being normalized and is arguably even culturally attractive. Wow. I mean, this is coming out of the UK, so that's kind of a shocking statement, right?
Yeah, off the cuff, it's a little. I've never been to the UK, so I've not been there. Certainly read a lot and talked to people that are there and in ministry there, but that's I would assume that's a massive answer to prayer and been a long time coming and hoped for. But at first read, it's kind of hard to believe. That's a shock to the system. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's any of that happening in the Portland area where there's maybe less animosity toward the church right now than in previous years or decades?
You know what? That's a great question. On a like a public or social level, I don't see that. I think on a personal level, personal interactions and some stories and conversations, perhaps. Mm-hmm. And so and that comes through. I moved to Portland in 2007, and then got obviously some years here, and so there does seem to be a movement of, I have noticed a difference in openness or warmness or even neutrality. I would even say just neutrality, like of being open, like, oh, okay, like tell me more about that, or what's that like? Whereas I knew for the first decade I was here, it felt, if I mentioned I was a pastor, you could just read it in their face, like it just like would,
you had to be careful with that. That's fun. Yeah, I would say anecdotally for me, because I haven't done any research on this, but just what I'm noticing, maybe what we're seeing in our church, in my neighborhood, is that there is a little more, perhaps, boldness on the part of those who are followers of Jesus, and a little more room to express themselves, maybe in the culture around. And so one example of that, in our neighborhood, for the third year in a row, we did a 4th of July barbecue with our neighbors, and they asked for the third year in a row if we should pray before the meal. And so we circled up like this giant circle in our cul-de-sac, holding hands. And they said, "Pastor, will you pray?" And so and I'm like, I always hate that, because it's like, well, anybody can pray. It doesn't need to be a pastor, but 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 it was an honor, and it was cool to go, wow, is this real? Is this happening in my neighborhood? Where we're doing this. And then I know that not everybody in that circle is a follower of Jesus, but they're going along with it. And so there's that at the in our youth ministry. We're seeing just a lot of young people. And I think we'll get to this a little more in a little bit, but the youth culture, I think for sure is going, yeah, I do want to know if there's anything of value there, and I'm more open to it. At least it seems like.
The word that actually came to mind as you're sharing that was intrigue. Like I've experienced, that paints a good picture of, hey, pastor, will you pray? Should is this what we're supposed to do? Like, is it okay? Should we? But in that, there's what I've run into is some like curiosity, and instead of like a shutdown of, I'm not going to engage this, but to go, oh, that's interesting. Or my youngest son just got a tattoo, and it was related to it wasn't a verse, but it was related to a verse. And we've gotten to know the tattoo artist a bit, and I mean, born and raised Portland, no faith, no experience in church, and was like, oh, he engaged it and was kind of like intrigued by it, and oh, that's cool. So and that's in the Bible, and so there's this is saying culturally attractive. That's the quote or the key indicator. And so I don't know that Portland's there, but there does seem to be a little bit of a moving of the needle of okay, we're open, and that maybe hopefully I might be stretching a little bit, but a respect of, oh, this is what you've chosen to live out in your life and value, and so I'll at least appreciate that maybe.
Yeah. Reminds me of the words of Jesus, by your fruits they will know you. And maybe there's part of that's coming to light here. It was a hard season the last 5 years, no doubt. And maybe the faithfulness of those who are following Jesus just through this season has earned some of that, what you might say, respect, at least enough to be heard.
Well, and just to, differentiate a little bit, there's just to go there here early, is the political across our nation, the political assumptions. So here in Portland, that's a massive divide. And so there's a difference between the personal when you're around a barbecue and somebody that as a neighbor is very, to be able to differentiate that from whatever our Portland cultural assumptions are of national politics, and how that can get assumptions made or looped in with, oh, that's Christian because so-and-so claimed to be a Christian, and that's what they're all like. And so where there's relationship and opportunity to differentiate what I assumed about something nationally versus my neighbor who I know and see on a regular basis, there's some openness there, I think, which is helpful, needed.
It totally is. Okay, number 2, you ready?
Yep.
Number 2, young adults are finding their way into the church in remarkable numbers. Remarkable numbers. In the UK, there was a huge jump in young people attending church in the last 5 to 7 years. So what's your reaction to the statement, young adults are finding their way into the church in remarkable numbers?
Well, again, if I were to parallel that with Portland, there's, and I'm sure this is true across the nation to some degree, but I would look at our generation. We have baggage, and the next generation or two behind us, and then we have this young adult or even adolescent ages coming up that do not have any background in the church. And so, again, the church that I was a part of for so many years here in Portland, we were starting to hear stories of high schoolers that were asking questions about faith, wanted to come visit a church on a Sunday, and were like, oh, this is really great. And then, where for so long, I kind of grew up in a ministry environment that was like, oh, how do we engage and relate to, and, not come off as offensive or ask the right questions. And, in a genuine, missional drive to engage in that way. And then all of a sudden a high schooler, 17-year-old walks in and is like, oh, this is great. You guys are lovely and fun and warm. And it's just like, disorienting. Like, wait, what? You don't have 7 questions queued up that you're going to fire at us
Mm-hmm.
to see how much you can hate us. Like it was a little like disorienting. And so, but again, I think there is a generation that just doesn't have that, the hurt, the pain, the confusion, the disappointment, all of those things that we're so familiar with, and are longing for something. And so are coming and finding Jesus and finding a people that are real and an experience that is real. And so hopefully that happens more here.
Yeah, let's pray. And I mean, I think what the implication is, because I'm sure that there is some parallel, at least in the churches that I'm connected to, the stories that we're hearing. Yeah, there's definitely I don't think I would call it a return, because I don't know that these people were ever a part of the church before, right? So it's an engagement of younger people and young adults for sure, at least in, again, my experience. And I think the implication is we should be expecting them and preparing for them, and finding ways to shepherd them. And so a lot of the churches probably that are experiencing a surge in that group, maybe they were already anticipating, but it's not too late for any church, I think, to get ready for this harvest of people that maybe we didn't expect.
Amen. Yeah.
For a while. So that's exciting. Yeah. Okay. You go with number 3.
Number 3, this is a growing church interested in belonging, believing, and practicing. Key quote. 67% of church-going Christians read the Bible at least weekly outside of church. That was the key stat. So,
yeah, key stat.
It's good. All right. So how have you experienced that?
I would say, at least in my church, this still feels like the hard work to do.
Okay. When you say that, Gabe, like it's saying belonging, believing, and practicing. So do you mean all 3 together equally, or would you pull out one of those as more than the other?
Like what they're saying. Yeah, I mean, I would say the stat they pulled out, like Bible engagement weekly outside of church. I don't know. We haven't surveyed our church, but I would say, man, the hunger is certainly there. And here's what we have seen in our church and in our family of churches. We've seen more people taking more steps. That's for sure what we're seeing. And so it's very exciting. Like more people taking more steps. That means the very beginning steps of coming to know Jesus, steps like baptism, steps like serving, giving, steps like, spiritual practices. For sure, remarkable jumps in across the board. And so that's at least been our observation. Mm-hmm. And, so for us, we've had to create like new teams just to handle the amount of people that want to take steps, so that we can make sure that there's clarity, and access to resources and some of those things. So that's been really.
What's an example of one of those teams? That I'd love to hear what that looks like.
So at our church, we do a kind of a fun. We've tried to make it somewhat fun to connect to the idea of following Jesus. I mean, not that it's not fun, but in terms of like, how do you break down the pathway? Everybody talks about the pathway, and we've spent years and years trying to figure out how do we want to uniquely say this. So we decided to go with mountain climbing, and that we just go like, what are according to if you go back to the Reveal study years ago, and they even had the Move study for church planters. It was like a condensed, if you're going to start simply, mm-hmm. And the Reveal study was 500,000 Christians, 10 years. How did you grow? And they really found out through that there's really 3 moves. And so we just kind of took that and said, we're probably not going to do any bigger research project than that. So let's at least stick with that. It's pretty much a move to Jesus, then to community, then to mission. So we decided we're going to do it mountain climbing. There's 3 mountains. And so we keep asking, like, what's your next move? What's your next mountain? And so we have something that kind of sits underneath that called relational discipleship team. And it's people that do sort of intake and then handoffs. And so it's almost all one-to-one. and they'll do intake and handoffs. And so if somebody's ready for baptism, that's a personal handoff. If they're ready for serving, that's a handoff. There's systems behind it too, but there's a lot of personal touch to it. Phone, text, coffee, so that's been a really, really fun shift for us in the last couple of years. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, we've always said it's not quite soup yet, but it seems like, there's been a lot more traction even more recently. So really fun. Yeah. But I think that's, again, to me, I look at it and go, yeah, maybe there's something to this. There's interest in not just going, I am a Christian, but what does it mean to follow Jesus? That's exciting.
I wonder if it just popped into my mind is like, I wonder if part of that is that I don't know how to quantify this culturally, but like, I'm not going to claim something if I'm not going to like participate in it or follow through with it, and obviously if somebody's going to show up, on a Sunday and get connected, make themselves available, they're leaning in and going to go. But, whereas I think one of the, old hurdles was, are people just showing up, but they're sitting in neutral.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I'm not even going to show up. Like if I'm here, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to move. I'm ready to take the next step. I'm ready.
Yeah. No, that's really a good point. And probably we all saw that through COVID, this little bit of a purge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe more than a little bit of a purge.
I'm going to quote you on that. COVID, there might have been a little bit of a purge. Yeah.
I remember our first returning service after COVID, 16 people, 16. And it was like, oh.
So you were booming.
Yeah. That was fun.
I don't even want to go back there mentally. That was
I know.
Yeah.
To your point on this, number 4 here is the idea that Britons are to some extent Christian by default is rapidly diminishing.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Portland, I don't think we had that really ever in my lifetime. The people are, I'm Christian by default. But even now more so, to your point, there's a definition line that's pretty strong. Like if you're a Christian, there's even a more eagerness, it feels like, to do, like Titus says, to do what is good.
Yeah. And I wonder too, if like, I think Portland, and this is probably just Pacific Northwest and in general, so it's not just Portland, but there's like I'm not default by anything. I came here to claim who I am, and I'll tell you who I am. Or I came here to find myself. And so I have taken on these things and I am this person. There's no default. Like there's no, and so there's so even like a jettison of what was. And so I get to tell you who I am.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of in the water. Like we ask, we don't assume here. Like,
that's really good. And don't you think that's still true as it ever has been?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. That's cool. That's a good observation.
Well, you talk to people, like, especially in church planting circles, you get teams that are called here from other parts of the U.S. And that's a learning curve, is to go, if we don't get that, we're going to be missing, because even the questions that are asked and getting to know people are, I think they're different here than other places. And so that's your family line doesn't matter as much. Where you're from doesn't matter as much. What you did, like, it's okay. How do you identify yourself now? What are you into? What do you care about? What are you working towards? Like, it's a very present identity.
I mean, it seems like there's actually a real part of grace in that, and I think sometimes you find these things in culture, and they don't always come from inside the church. Sometimes we find
right.
The culture does a better job of grace sometimes than the church does. And I think that's one of the areas that's really beautiful actually about Portland, is that there is that tone of appreciation of uniqueness that I think is a really, really good thing.
Well, yeah, the word that, oh gosh, I don't know, late 90s we decided was a new word was authenticity, and
Yeah.
we're going to be authentic all the time. And it's like, yeah, there's no, that's right. That's not something the church is offering to Portland. Like Portland just, you know, exudes that, like
Yeah.
healthy or not, it's there. And
Yeah. And
I,
so what we found is that that's then permission to play. Like if you don't operate by that value, you can't play.
right, right.
You just got to sit on the sidelines at that point. So that's a
That's a,
big one.
that's a good way to phrase it. Permission to play. Yeah. Okay. Next one, number 5.
Yeah.
Our youngest group is showing above average engagement in spiritual practice. Our youngest age group. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
And we talked a little bit about some of the young adult stuff.
mm,
What are you seeing? I mean, I'm curious what your connections around the city have revealed, in some of these things, and anything with your work with Western or any of that. What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
well, I think there's definitely like I would say a next generation of leaders um, that are how's to say this appropriately? Like there's just a different. I think as I look at older generations, there were again going back to the default. Like there's just a lot of assumptions, and what I'm noticing is like there's a what's a good word for it? It's like the dialect or the language. Like they're not going to just theorize. They're going to talk about what they're experiencing, and so there's a realness or a validity to what they are experiencing. So they're not going to talk about their faith in theory. They're talking about it in what they're experiencing, what they're doing, where they're failing, where they're seeing victory, where they're seeing change and transformation. So there's it's just a very accessible part of their life. Whereas I can compare that to maybe just different generations and say you could talk about it in theory or what you're meeting the generic expectation, but you're not able to talk about it in a very personal,
Yeah.
experiential way. If that does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think something that comes to mind when I'm reacting to this statement is I keep thinking about something that happened on Monday. I went up this week with my wife to visit our church kids at camp. Our high schoolers are at Bible camp this summer at Black Lake Bible Camp in Olympia, Washington. Great camp, very solid, awesome, gospel focused and Bible centered place and curriculum. And so we get there and we're hanging out, and I see all this activity in the lake. And I'm wondering what's going on, because it looked like our entire group, which was a pretty large group this year, was all in the water. And I was wondering, are they hazing people? What's happening right now? But I see this kid grab another kid by the neck and he baptizes him. And I'm like, what's happening? And well, no, this is true. This guy goes, well, that person wasn't allowed to be baptized at church. And so probably like giving away too much information here. But so his friend just baptized him here. And I was like, wow, that's bold. And so, there was two things happening. Well, probably multiple things happening there. And I don't know if this is going to get me in trouble for saying this, but a kid got to baptize his friend.
Mm-hmm.
A kid that wanted to be baptized got to be baptized.
Yeah.
And, it was almost like, well, we want to obey Jesus, so we're going to do this. So there's like this almost rogue sense of obedience in that moment. And then another thing that keeps coming to mind is, you remember paper Bibles?
Like, is that a brand name?
Remember paper Bibles? No, like the things they have like a leather cover on them and there's like pages in the middle that have the Bible on it.
Like an actual physical Bible.
I'm just teasing.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's like, they're back. And in fact, I feel like a weirdo walking with younger people now, because like I'll show up and they're like, hey, let's all look at our Bible. I'll have my phone out. And they're like, dude, where's your real Bible? Like there's something wrong with me,
Okay.
And I just think there's it's interesting to go, there's a craving to really like get into, the meat of things. And it's like, I think when I was in high school, there was like this aversion to, you almost said it earlier, like, oh, we got to figure out how to make this acceptable enough for somebody to engage to begin with. But I don't know, there's just like a more of a direct hunger, I think.
That's total. Yeah. I think there's well, first of all, funny on the paper Bibles. One reason I didn't get that, Gabe, was because I actually have always used a physical Bible. I've never moved to like a screen. And so yeah, I'm a little, retro maybe.
You're popular, what you are.
That's what it is. I'm trying to be hip and use a paper Bible. That's what yeah. No, but my youngest son just graduated high school, and that's what he requested as a gift was this. I'm going to brag on my son a little bit here, but we got him a Bible for 13 or 16, I don't remember, but he literally wore it out.
Oh, wow.
So he's gone to this little Christian school, which is a great school. Props to Manor House Christian Academy. But and so he and a bunch of buddies would read their Bible every day. So he would get up and read it most days, and he literally wore it out. And so it was falling apart. And so he asked for his graduation, he found this crazy expensive leather Bible that, of course we're going to buy our kid a leather Bible if he asks for it, so we bought him, and he's already highlighting in it. He's been graduated, whatever, 5 weeks or something. And so there is this like it's hands on it, it's tangible. But I think aside from, our boys who grew up in a pastor's home, just generationally, culturally, is like there is a sense to like, how can I express my devotion or my faith or this unique thing that is not widely accepted and kind of fall into it. And again, I'm still learning. And so I don't know, but there is a tide turning, and that was not the same when I was that age. And that's pretty exciting.
It is. Yeah. There's a real boldness, I think, among young people right now for faith in at least my experience, the churches we're connected to. It's just been very refreshing, and I think it's fun to watch. I think even on the leadership side, what's happening with young people is remarkable. I mean, like there's some serious leadership happening that almost like either you guys, I feel like it's either you guys help us do this inside the church, or we're going to just do it without you. And I love that.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. Yeah, I met with a guy this morning who's part of the house church movement, and there's that. There's just that sense of this is. And he actually expressed his own journey. Was like I thought the church was just something we went to, and then it finally, he's like, I grew up in it, but it literally didn't. I didn't realize the Great Commission was for me until early 20s, and he's like, yeah, my wife and I were like, we thought this was for other people, but we're following Jesus. This is for, so their life completely shifted, and they're like, okay, we're called to evangelism, discipleship. That's what we're going to do. And they fell in line with this house church, and now they're multiplying house churches. And
how cool. I love that. Wow. That's really cool. Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch more of these, and we don't have time to go through all of them. I think if you could pick only one more, Tim, which one would you pick? Dun, 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 dun.
I'm just going to go to the last one.
Okay.
Number 10, the tide of faith is coming in again, and the church needs to adjust to a new and strangely hopeful reality.
Yeah,
man, we are. I'm just going to tell you, off the cuff, I'm like, we are not equipped for that. We're called to it. I don't know that we're equipped to it. Like, I just think, like, I should say, and I'm saying, I should say, I just say me. Like, I look at the coming generation of leaders, and I said they're ready for it. They're like, but coming from I was telling somebody my just told journey in ministry and call to ministry, and it started in leadership during the kind of the Gen X push, and postmodern was this brand new word that we were learning what it meant, but everything was like moody and dark and like, and that's not
it's like I like my music.
yes,
Like,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. So the idea of a hopeful reality is like, oh, we see that in all over scripture. That's our call. That, that's what, brings our hearts and minds to creativity and courage and sacrifice, but I just realized like, whoa, it's actually, I mean, just to read that it's actually happening in England and Wales, to believe that it can happen here, is continues to be a stretch of faith. And so hoping for it, but that to actually plan for a hopeful reality still feels like a stretch as much as pray for it, hope for it, and want it. But what about you?
I'm challenged by it for sure. I think maybe the solution is what you just said, which is the younger people are ready for it. And maybe we just need to quickly make room for young leaders to sit next to as many of us as possible, and give them as much steering wheel as we can, and do that as just as fast as we can in the coming months. Because it just feels like if the Lord wants to move someplace, we should want to join him. Like, how do we do that? And I know that sometimes it's structural things that have to change, and that takes time. But maybe what we could all do is just allow a little bit of permission for experiments and see what happens, because there's a lot of possibility in it, I think.
So I absolutely agree. And you asked earlier, like, what have I seen kind of in my newer role with Western and young leaders around the city is, I would say, without any data to support this, so just anecdotal, like who I know and relationships, for the next generation of leaders, an eagerness to be mentored and to learn and to ask questions, and a humility that I'm not sure my generation had. So I'll let you speak for that on your own. But I felt like a lot of the people that that I knew when I was first starting in ministry was like, hey, we can figure this out. We can do this. And now there's very much a sense of like asking questions and receiving coaching and feedback and that kind of thing so when you say like, bring them in alongside and give them as much as the steering wheel, there's that feels like it might be easier with this next generation than it was for those that were ahead of us.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that, but that's one of the really encouraging signs that I'm experiencing. Is like, oh man, you guys are just soaking it up. And
yeah, I agree, because like forever, everybody's dogging on Gen Z for work ethic and all that kind of stuff. And I honestly, I get part of like the disconnect. Sometimes it feels like maybe somebody that's my generation goes, this is how you're supposed to reply to an email, or this is how that kind of stuff. But if you just skip all that and go like, well, how does that person communicate, and how fast do they respond to their native, communication thing? It's probably a lot faster than I respond to an email. Yeah. And when they make a decision to do something, it's generally pretty. It's like they're there, they're in it, and so I think maybe part of it is us learning a language of that we're not that familiar with, but just maybe making a good assumption, like, hey, I'm assuming good things about how you're going to follow through in this, and so it's definitely a trust thing, and I understand that sometimes it doesn't always work out, but my experience with this right now is the most exhilarating thing that's happening in my personal ministry is watching young people step up to lead. Yeah. And having been, the young person stepping up to lead and making colossal mistakes, like very expensive mistakes, like in every way. Sure. There's just, for me, there's a definite willingness to go, big deal. Let's just, start over and try again and come at it one more time. And so I think just having that's why maybe for me, I think it's about going, you can't bet the farm all the time. So you can't go, hey, let's just, put somebody up to bat who's never batted before. And I get that, but you can have other ways of experimenting that get people in the game. And if there's enough leverage there, it could create new channels and new things for ministry that, that then are that net for the harvest that God wants to bring in. Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing some of that happen around the city. I love it.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
That's good. What about you? Did you have one you'd pick that's left?
Oh man. Okay. So the last one for me, I think it's about the young. It says that our youngest group. No, not that. It's young Christians report finding the Bible more challenging than older Christians, and it's finding number 8 in this report. Yeah. And I think what it really gets to is that, like, if you grew up without a faith background, yeah, you're going to look at this thing and go like, this is weird stuff. I don't understand this. And so the reality is this is a totally different way of living than our world has presented. And it's going to take some time, for us to walk people through it. And yet I'll give you one really encouraging example of this. There's a gentleman in our church, and he's a really key leader right now. He's 26, I think. Wow. And I've known him since he was like 14. So like kind of part of our family, really great guy. But for years he was serving on our church team, and there was a piece in his lifestyle and relationship that wasn't the leadership standard for our church. Mm-hmm. And so he was eager to take his next step, follower of Jesus, go-getter. But there was this piece of obedience that needed to snap into place, and it was a pretty big deal. And so, you know what he did though? He totally submitted to the process, and it was foreign to him. He wasn't raised this way. It was foreign to him, but he took the time to learn it and to yield to it, and he went with it. And it took some humility, and it took him some time, because it was a big shift. And he has become one of our best leaders. He's become one of the most reliable people that we can go to. He is an evangelist. He's a discipler.
That's awesome.
He's a musician. He's just an incredible guy that I have so much respect for. And to your point earlier, he's humble, coachable. And I just feel like, the scripture that he encountered, the way of Jesus, was totally different than the way of the world. And it took him some time to adjust, but he was willing to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think that, kudos to the leaders that literally walked hand in hand with him through years of adjustments.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, not bouncing him from relationship. And I think that, if we can find places and spaces to do that, where, this thing said people are interested in belonging, believing. And I think that's the key probably. But that is the Portland culture right there. So if we can match that with the church, then we're probably just cooperating with Jesus in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just going back to the default, it's like you said, if he didn't grow up with it, there's no background to fall back on, or so they're learning things for the first time. Mm-hmm. And of course it's going to be more challenging. Like, wait, what? Yeah. You got to, so whatever that issue was that he had to submit, it's like, wait, I've grown up, my whole world, everything around it, nothing has told me that I have to be anything less than the king over that own part of my life. And now you're telling me Jesus gets to have that role. Like, what? Yeah. Okay. Of course it's going to be challenging. Yeah.
Well, man, thanks for batting these things around with me. This has been fun.
Yeah, totally fun. Thank you.
It does give me hope for our city. And I hope anybody who's listening or watching starts to sense that. We do have optimism for our city. God is doing some
absolutely
things here.
Yeah.
One thing we'll do here is we'll put a link to the report that we're referencing in the description here, and want to encourage you to share your thoughts. Like if you're from Portland, we'd love to hear what you're seeing. If you're not from Portland, or the Portland area, we'd love to hear your questions. And so you can drop all that stuff in the comments, but thanks for being part of what we're doing here in the conversation. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Gabe. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Jesus in the Upper Left. We want to ask you a quick favor. Would you please subscribe so you don't miss a single episode, and share with those that are in your life that might benefit from the content. Hit the notifications button, rate and review, of course, and then head on over to upperleftshow.com where you can find bonus content, opportunities to connect with those around the city that are doing similar work as you, resources to help you, and just a way to connect to the community. We hope to see you again next time.